Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 167. We're going to continue with our Bradley Edwards columns that he has penned for the Daily Mail as he leads up to the release of his book, Relentless Pursuit, on March 31st. And again, if you have not pre-ordered it, or if you haven't heard about it yet, maybe, well, now's the time to go ahead and pre-order that, because this book is really going to give us a whole lot of information from somebody who was, like I've said earlier, somebody who was on the ground in the middle of the fight. So I highly suggest that you get that book. Definitely go out and get it. Support his efforts here to get the story out, right? Because really, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Letting people know about what occurred in this case and what was tossed under the rug for so long. And that's what Bradley Edwards is doing here in this book. And we see it so far in these teaser articles, how gripping his story is and how important it is for his story to get publicity. So that's why I'm sticking with this theme until we read all of them. We're going to keep reading these stories as they come out, and obviously we'll cover other things, right? But for the past couple of days, these have been the most important pieces of news to add to our catalog. So with that said, we're going to jump into the article. Obviously, the article is from the Daily Mail, and the headline is, Jeffrey Epstein said Prince Andrew couldn't have had a bath with Virginia Roberts because Ghislaine Maxwell's tub was too small for two people. These are the kinds of excuses that these guys try and throw out there. And when they throw out these excuses to the authorities, you would think that the authorities would be like, wait a minute, hold on, this doesn't cut the mustard. All right, this is BS. Something's wrong here. But instead, these seasoned investigators, for some reason, just take these guys at face value and just, it's okay. You're Jeffrey Epstein. You're Prince Andrew. You both can't fit in the bathtub. I don't even need to come and measure it. You're telling me that that's the case, so I believe you. And we've seen it over and over again in this case. How many times are these disgusting-ass people going to be able to get away with their crimes and their actions with these flimsy-ass alibis, these lame-ass excuses that would never stand up in court? If I was a juror and this was the alibi, forget it. You're going to prison for the rest of your life, buddy. You better have receipts. If your accuser has receipts and your accuser has evidence and your accuser has corroborating witness statements and flight logs, etc., and all you got is words, well, like George R. Martin says, words are wind, my friend. Words are wind. We need proof, receipts. And these gross-ass so-called elites have shown none of that. All they've given us is flimsy-ass alibis and excuses and BS story after BS story. During our investigation of Jeffrey Epstein, he called me several times to arrange meetings. The first occasion was in the autumn of 2015. I was sitting at lunch with two of my law partners when I got a call on my mobile phone that showed the incoming number as 000000000. Oh boy, that Jeffrey Epstein, isn't he an international man of mystery? He knows how to use a phone, knows how to use software to make his phone number silly. Or he had some IT guy do it for him. Really, Epstein? All right, the stupid ass coded number, the ghosted number, really? Absolute dork this guy was. I had never seen a phone number come up like that, so I walked outside and answered the call. Brad, it's Jeffrey. Let's meet face to face. When I asked why, he responded, I want to see if there's a way for us to finally get divorced from one another. And that was Epstein's MO. That was the way he conducted himself on a regular basis. Basically what he's doing here is flexing, right? Trying to flex on Mr. Edwards. Trying to be like, all right, let's meet face to face so I can intimidate you with my connections, with the people I know, with the powerful that I surround myself with. Maybe I'll be able to intimidate you, so let's meet face to face. What's up? This was his way of implying that he wanted to find a way to resolve all cases that involved him. The call told me he was concerned. We arranged to meet the next morning at a Starbucks in Boca Raton, Florida. Hell yeah, he was concerned, and we saw it right away. We know that Bradley Edwards was on the right track. We know that Bradley Edwards was on the path to really outing this scumbag Epstein. We know that. All you have to do is look back at it in history, right? Look back at it now, what we know now, look at the story then. And you see all the pieces come into place. And you see how on point Bradley Edwards and the other lawyers were when they were going after Epstein and calling him basically the most prolific child abuser in the country, maybe in the country's history. Yes, this was unusual, but things between us were far beyond anything lawyers could fix. It was just gamesmanship. Part of an 8-year legal chess game between a genius sociopath and me, a lawyer in the business of playing legal chess against bad guys. And when he says a genius sociopath, he means that as a criminal, I'm guessing, not as a mastermind of the operation, because we all know who the mastermind was. We all know, all right? I showed up to the Starbucks first. Epstein appeared wearing his customary gray sweatpants and blue suede slippers with the collar turned up on his monogrammed polo shirt. I mean, is there ever a more douchey outfit for a more douchey fella? Cool outfit, Jeffrey Epstein. Love the sailor suit. I mean, really? Is this guy for real? The outfits he wore as well? I mean, suede slippers with the collar turned up? What is he? He's popping his collar? This guy is just an absolute creep. Just an absolute and utter creep. And as I've said numerous times, I am very glad that he is dead. There is no doubt that I am glad that he is dead. The world is a better place without him in it, and it's a better place where we're not spending tax dollars to house him. But at the same time, obviously, that's the selfish part of me speaking. We wanted him alive so that the survivors could stare him down in court and get the justice that they so deserve, seeing him get perp-walked, seeing him getting sentenced, seeing him having those bars slammed behind him for the rest of his damn natural life. That would have been fine too, right? But him dying, look, it's no great loss to the world. That's certainly, I'm sure everyone can agree with that. We talked for an hour about our philosophical differences, our factual and legal disagreements. Cat and mouse, folks. That's what we had going on here, like Mr. Edwards says. A game of high-level cat and mouse. Now, while I say Epstein wasn't smart, what I mean by that is he wasn't a scientist. He wasn't, some world-shattering mind. A man who is going to be invited to any of these conferences that he was invited to. He was only invited to those conferences because he was shelling out dough. It wasn't because he, had papers that were published in scientific journals or peer-reviewed papers that were published in, scientific journals. None of that. He was a hanger-on. But he was a criminal mastermind, right? He understood how to move money. He understood how to launder money. He understood how to make things move on a shadowy basis where he's not getting people prying eyes peeping in on what he has going on. He was very good at that, and definitely a criminal mastermind in that regard. Zero doubt there. But as far as being able to weasel his way into polite society the way he did and to spin this whole elaborate operation, there is zero chance, in my opinion, that Jeffrey Epstein was the man who was the architect behind all of that. Zero chance. He thought female sexual availability should be determined by biology and not established by arbitrary social norms or the law. Under his law, science was all that mattered. Prepubescent, therefore, was where he drew the line. It makes me want to vomit in my mouth. And we know that Dershowitz is another one that ascribes to this kind of shit. Right? She was 17. That makes her a prostitute. No. Nope. You guys are all sick, in my opinion. All of you are beyond the pale, gross, sick-ass people. Okay? And the fact that everybody knows what Jeffrey Epstein liked, the fact that everybody knows what Jeffrey Epstein was up to, and the fact that nobody in so-called polite society has come forward and said, look, I'm here to validate the claims of these survivors. I'm here to tell you what I witnessed firsthand while I was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. Is there no honor amongst any of you scoundrels? According to Epstein, the age of consent, if dictated by anything other than biology, was arbitrary. which was a word signifying that it should have no application in any aspect of his life. How could a female whose body was able to bear children not be given the choice to perform the acts necessary to give birth? The choice? You didn't give anybody a choice, Mr. Epstein. You groomed them. You had them basically involved in a sex cult. And once you had them comfortable with you, and once you made that their regular norm, you sent them out to be abused by your other disgusting-ass friends like Len Dubin, like Prince Andrew, like George Mitchell, like Bill Richardson. Okay? This is the kind of person Jeffrey Epstein was. This is the sort of disgusting man he was. All right? And it's quite evident to anyone who's paying attention at this point, that all of the people around him, especially his inner circle, they all knew what was up, folks, all right? They were involved in procuring the girls, etc., etc. And for them to still be running around right now, for them to not be facing justice, it makes my skin crawl, especially after reading stuff like this, especially after reading these few articles that we've read from Bradley Edwards in the past couple of days and seeing how horrifying this whole scene was, and the absolute and utter trauma that these poor girls suffered. In his own twisted ideology, he thought he was invincible. He basically said as much. He loved to name drop to let me know how important and protected he was. The more we talked, the clearer certain things about him became. He was a very torn soul. Yeah, that's to say the least, huh? And I would take it a step further. I would say that he was one of those people without a soul, right? If I was a religious person, I would say he's definitely soulless, a soulless monster. And he's the embodiment of everything a demon is. And that's just the way I look at it. This guy he was evil incarnate while he roamed this earth. He wanted to resolve his legal problems, all of which stemmed from his sexual deviant behavior, but he didn't really want to change that behavior. Yeah, he was a sick man. There is no doubt about it. It's definitely not an excuse, but the dude obviously was mentally ill, and the proclivities he had were just utterly disgusting. This is the kind of man that could never, ever, and should never be released into society. This is a man that should be kept away from everybody else for the rest of his life. And the fact that they had the chance to do that numerous times and they didn't, even with this abundance of evidence staring them in the face, leads to only one place, folks. Okay? And that place is Jeffrey Epstein is being protected. He loved to make jokes that were particularly inappropriate for the situation. He said something along the lines of, "Brad, let's put our heads together and figure out how we can massage the narrative to make it more fair to me." Before staring at me and pausing, then he added, "My kind of massage, of course." And we know what that means. The massage in Jeffrey Epstein's world meant sex with young girls. And he was that brazen, folks. This is how brazen him and the people like him are. They throw it right in our face. We know exactly what they're doing. We know what they're up to. We know that they're perverted, but they're throwing it right in our face and laughing about it, throwing it right in the face of the authorities and laughing about it, making jokes like it's no big deal, all because they're being protected by other corrupt, sick MFs. Do you like what you see, folks? Do you like how it looks when we draw the curtain back? Do you like to stare into what true evil is? Because that's exactly what we're doing. We're taking a glimpse behind the curtain. And what we're finding is enough to make me want to jump out of my skin. These types of childish statements were irresistible for Epstein. He would snicker afterwards, expecting a reciprocal laugh. Yeah, okay. While at Starbucks, Jeffrey looked at me and said, "You know, some of what Virginia is saying isn't right." "What part?" I asked. "Didn't Virginia say she and Ghislaine had a threesome with Prince Andrew over in Ghislaine's apartment in London?" He was clearly trying to embellish things to make her appear unbelievable, and that was the strategy from his lawyers on down. The whole entire Epstein apparatus used that strategy of trying to demean these survivors and trying to talk down to them and trying to make them out to be prostitutes or mentally ill or girls that are just chasing a payday. And they were successful doing that because the prosecution was so weak-kneed and so spaghetti-backed. They had no spine whatsoever. And they not only let the defense pretty much dictate the whole entire case, but they ran right along with them and also demeaned the survivors. I corrected him. No, she didn't say anything about a threesome, but now that you bring it up, she did say that she was with you and Ghislaine at the apartment in London when Prince Andrew came over and stayed the night. You instructed her to entertain him. There's even a picture to prove most of that. He said, "There's a problem. Now I remember. She said she took a bath with Andy. If I could show you how small Ghislaine's bath was in that apartment, it would be tough for two people to fit in." Really? That's your alibi? So we see the alibis from these people. They'd never really spent much time coming out with them because they never figured they'd have to face the music. Oh, I was eating pizza in Woking. I can't sweat. I wasn't wearing the proper kit. I wasn't wearing my sexual assault kit that night. Oh, the bathtub's too small. They both can't fit in it. I mean, is this real life? Are we living in like some sort of simulation and nobody's made me aware yet? Because this can't be reality. This seemed like a weak point to force. How about the threesome with you and Ghislaine where Virginia was made to dress up as a Catholic schoolgirl and sometimes in latex outfits, I said. That certainly doesn't seem far-fetched given that Juan Alessi, Epstein's former housekeeper, testified about Ghislaine's sex toys, and we know you particularly enjoy the schoolgirls in uniform. I've run out of things to say at this point, words to use to describe my anger and to describe my disgust by the whole entire thing. They had Virginia Roberts dressed as a schoolgirl or in latex. This is a little girl, folks. And these sick people abused her to extents that we can't even fathom. We can't even begin to comprehend what Virginia and Annie and Maria and all the other girls went through at the hands of these sick bastards who were still roaming around free, who, under that deal, were able to continue with their fantastic lives and, in some cases, build business empires almost. And yet, here is the lawyer who has represented multiple girls in the case, coming out and blasting you right in the face with some reality. This is right in your face, pull the curtain back, have a nice look of what your rulers and your leaders think of you. They think so little of us that they'll brazenly abuse children and traffic them and protect traffickers, and then act like they have nothing to answer for when we find out about it, when the rug gets pulled out from underneath them, when the curtain gets pulled back and their devious, disgusting, dark behavior is exposed for the world. He smirked and he said, "Does Ghislaine look like my type to you? Don't you know me better by now?" He loved to make comments like that, poking fun at the fact that he was attracted to young girls, a category into which Ghislaine Maxwell did not fall. Again, folks, these articles that we're reading by Bradley Edwards are very important additions to the catalog, very important additions to the Jeffrey Epstein show. And it's very important that we all understand that this isn't a man that is giving you second or third-hand knowledge. This is not a man who's out here BSing around. This is a man who has been in the fight from the very beginning almost to bring justice to these girls. This is a man who's pretty much dedicated his life to this at this point. And I think he needs to be commended. And I think that we need to make sure that when we're talking about the other heroes in this case and the other people who stood up for these survivors when nobody else would, you have to add Bradley Edwards to that, and you have to make sure that he's getting the props he deserves for not only writing this book, but for teasing out with these articles leading up to the release of this book. Because what it does is it gives you a little taste of the information that's going to be provided, and I for one cannot wait to get my hands on it. I can't wait for my Audible book to download on the 31st. I'm going to spend the good portion of the day listening to it and taking notes, and educating myself. Like I always say, I don't know everything about this case. I come out here and I read the articles with you guys, and I try to know as much as I can, right? I try to, make sure I'm as knowledgeable as humanly possible when it comes to this case, so that, when we discuss it, I'm giving you information that you'll find useful stuff. And obviously I want to try and make it entertaining, because this is a big, I understand this is a big commitment of time here, right? So we want to make sure that we're disseminating information that is helpful, that is important to the case. And what is more important than somebody like Bradley Edwards, a lawyer who has been around from the jump pretty much, giving us information and writing a book to help inform us and to help the public understand the gravity of the situation, because this is a 4-alarm fire at this point. And unfortunately, with what's going on in the world, we're going to find a lot of people losing focus on stuff like this. And it's our job as people who are reporting on this case to make sure that we keep pumping out the content, in my opinion anyway. Obviously, I won't speak for anybody else. I only speak for myself here on this podcast. I don't speak for anybody else. But when it comes to me, I'm going to continue pumping out content, at least 2 episodes a day, about this case, because it's that important to me. I am that invested at this point, and I really, honestly, I don't even know how these people and the prosecution that's supposedly chasing them, how they think that we're going to forget about this, how they think that we're not going to continue to cover it. And you see a lot of that, right? You're starting to see it in the legacy media as well. But we will be here every single day, like usual. That's, of course, obviously, I'll add the caveat that unless I get the plague or something like that, I catch the crud, well, I might be knocked up for a few days. But if it's possible that I can be here and speaking about this podcast, I've been here on Christmas, I've been here on Thanksgiving, I've been here on Halloween, I've been here on my birthday. Rain, snow, sleet, or shine, it doesn't matter. I've been here to discuss this case, and that is going to continue. So, tonight, I will be premiering my new podcast. And the podcast is named COVID-19, the pandemic that changed everything. You will be able to find a link for it here in the description box. Now, I haven't uploaded the show yet. That won't be happening for another few hours, but I want to provide the link here for you so that it'll be easier for you to go back and check later on if you're interested in doing that. Or when you download the Jeffrey Epstein show tomorrow, you can download the new podcast as well if you're interested in it. And it makes it nice and a nice seamless search for everybody who is interested. Also, I will be posting a link on Twitter, so if you're not following me on Twitter, you should definitely do that. You can find me there at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. If you want to get in touch with me via email for either of the podcasts, the email is the same, and that email is bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. So tonight on the new podcast, the COVID-19, the pandemic that changed everything, we're going to read some articles from when this was first announced, all the way back before they even named it, before they called it Wuhan SARS, before they called it Wuhan coronavirus or Chinese coronavirus or COVID-19. We're going to go back and we're going to read a couple of articles that discuss this strange pneumonia that's been found in China. And we're going to also discuss tonight some of the people and some of the outlets who continue to gaslight you and continue to lie to you and tell you that this was just a flu. We're going to read a couple of those articles as well. And we're going to see just who is serving you right and who has been serving you bullshit for this whole entire time. And again, we're going to use the same format that I use here on the Jeffrey Epstein show, just like a daily drop. We're going to read the articles. I'll give you my commentary, and then we'll have different articles, different podcasts where we'll talk about the whole entire case as a whole, right? We'll do like a free for all. We'll do like a question and answers. We'll have people send in emails, and we'll do stuff like that as well. But to get things started, what we're going to do is start at the beginning of this whole entire outbreak a couple of months ago, and for the first few episodes of this podcast, the first few releases, we're going to establish the very beginning, the very origin of this, and how the news story has covered it for the whole entire time. And we're going to see how the news and the media and the legacy media and the places like the WHO and China have lied from the very beginning of this, causing the pandemic to reach the levels that it has reached today and now. And folks, we're just in the beginning of this. All right, this is just the beginning. Still, it is not a time to panic. It is a time to be informed. It is a time to make informed decisions. And that's what we're going to do on the new podcast, on the COVID-19, the pandemic that changed everything podcast. We're going to read articles from the mainstream media, from different outlets, the same way we do with the Jeffrey Epstein show, and we're going to get to the bottom of who has been bullshitting us and who has been telling us the truth. And we'll also be referring and leaning on medical journals and accounts from doctors on the front lines in Italy and elsewhere. So you can look forward to all of that tonight around 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. That should be out for you guys. And coming up tomorrow, we'll have episode 3 of the Core 4 series on the Jeffrey Epstein show. So a lot of content coming your way. A lot of people have reached out and asked me to pump out some content. So here I am. We're going to pump out this content. I'm in a lockdown at this point. I wouldn't be surprised to see National Guardsmen rolling through the streets of Las Vegas soon, considering all the jackwagons don't know how to stay home and watch TV. I mean, how hard of a directive is it, right? Stay home and watch TV, okay? It's not a very difficult thing to do. Play video games, catch up on housework, whatever it may be. This time off of work and this time out of school is not a time to congregate with your friends. It's not a time to congregate with your children and have play dates. This is a time to stay home and blunt this curve, folks. That's not a bunch of BS. That's not media made up, and that's another problem. And that's another reason why I thought that I had to jump into the fray and create this new podcast, because there's a lot of bullshit on both sides, okay? A lot of bullshit politics on both sides. And when that's going on, it makes one side or the other not be able to believe information that's coming out. Everybody's skeptical about stuff. Well, we're going to try and cut through all of that bullshit, all of that tribalism, all of that. The politicizing of this is not. We're not going to do that. We're not going to point fingers at politicians about this, right? That's not the point we're at right now. What we're going to look at is the genesis of this, the evolution of the outbreak, from how it occurred and how the media covered it, through the different stages as we've built up to this worldwide global catastrophe, folks, because we're at over 1,000 a day dying at this point. This global catastrophe that has been completely and utterly mismanaged on a global scale. Plenty of blame to go around, okay? Plenty of it. So the finger pointing, oh, Trump, or oh, Schumer, or oh, this politician, that's all a bunch of hogwash, and you should be ashamed of yourself if you're engaging in that. So we'll get into more of that on the podcast tonight. Obviously, I'll open it up with my usual rants and raves, like same way I do here on the Epstein show, and we'll get rocking and rolling, folks. And for those of you who are listening to the Epstein show right now, who are listening to this podcast, who might not be interested in the COVID-19 pandemic, and you might not be interested in, coming along for the ride, that's totally cool too. I get it. I understand. It's not a comfortable topic for everybody. Not everybody has not everybody is ready to face the facts that we're in a serious situation here, and people are still in denial. And when you get the force majeure and you get the red pilling and all of the factual information that you have thought was factual, I guess I should say, from the media, when you find out that the media doesn't even know what they're talking about, the legacy media has been bullshitting you, the Surgeon General it wasn't giving you proper information, the government as a whole, not just Trump, not just Schumer or Cuomo or Gavin Newsom, but as a whole was slow to respond to this, you'll start to see that there is plenty of blame to go around, and there are plenty of people who are still not ready to face the facts of the situation. And that situation is we are at war. This is a world war against this virus. And the sooner everybody gets on board and the sooner the bullshit gets put to the side and the actual work starts to get done, that is when we'll start to see things start to change a little bit and for this curve to start to be blunted. But until then, we're in for a long road here, folks. We're in for a very long ride, and it's going to change everything. This is going to change all of our lives in ways we never expected when all is said and done. All right, everybody, until later on tonight, I will talk to you then. Remember, the link for the new podcast will be in the description box of this episode. All right, folks, I hope you enjoy your Sunday as much as possible. I will talk to you later on tonight.